Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching Dzair News Live, and welcome to this English news edition. Coming up in the next 20 minutes. Investigators in France and beyond have begun making arrests as they piece together the identities and backstories of Paris attackers. Plus, G20 summit in Turkey has taken on new urgency after attacks in Paris pushed the fight against ISIS to the top of the agenda. And later on in our news program, on November the 15th, 1988, the Palestine National Council declared the independence of the State of Palestine in Algiers. Welcome again, ladies and gentlemen. And as part of digitizing the administration, the Interior Minister Nourdine Bedoui, while on a working visit to the southern province of Jilfa, stated that Algeria will implement advanced technologies to ease up the burden on municipal halls, as the residents will be able to withdraw official documents from their homes. And now we move to the atmosphere of fear and terror that has spread all over the Parisian streets after the attacks adopted by the so-called ISIS terrorist group last Friday night, in which 129 from different nationalities, including Algerians and Tunisians, were killed, while more than 352 were injured. Let's follow the aftermath of these attacks with Shakib Lawishi.
After the aftermath that struck the city of Paris, horrified people gathered in one of the Paris avenues to mourn the victims of the Bataclan massacre Friday night.
Un sentiment terrible.
That's a terrible feeling. These attacks affect France deeply.
Qui touche
We don't want to live this anymore.
Entièrement, et des images qu'on veut pas revoir.
There can only be tears in front of this horror, but we should be strong for our kids and for us. We are not afraid, and we will be stronger. Along this street, many international channels vans park to cover the whole event. The city that doesn't know sleep is for the first time quiet and calm after the death of at least 129 people. Paris being calm like this is not normal. This is not Paris. It's okay to be afraid. There is no shame, but we should not give up. We are not afraid, but just horrified of what has happened.
On est horrifié par ce qui s'est passé, mais on n'a pas peur, non.
Islamic State said it carried out the attacks on carefully chosen targets and were a response to France's involvement in the airstrikes on ISIS rebels in Syria and Iraq. President Hollande said France has been attacked in a cowardly, shameful and violent way and vowed to be merciless in its response to ISIS rebels.
Investigators in France and beyond have begun making arrests as they piece together the identities and backstories of the terrorists who killed more than 120 people in gun and bomb attacks across Paris. The Islamic State extremist group ISIS has claimed responsibility for Friday night's coordinated series of deadly assaults, the worst violence in France since World War II. Officials are still trying to figure out who the assailants were and how they planned and carried out near-synchronized massacres at restaurants, bars and a concert hall in the French capital without being detected by intelligence agencies. In the same context, 2 Algerian nationals have lost their lives during Paris attacks committed Friday evening. The victims are a 29-year-old young man living in Paris and 40-year-old woman holding dual citizenship. With formal identification still ongoing, more foreign nationals could be named as victims in the coming days. France has set up an emergency telephone number for tourists in Paris and those calling for information from abroad, which is +33 145 50 3460. Moving on to the G20 summit, U.S. President Barack Obama and other world leaders arrived in Turkey on Sunday for a summit that has taken on an urgency after attacks in Paris pushed the fight against the so-called Islamic State extremists to the top of the agenda. Obama, who called the attacks an outrageous attempt to terrorize civilians on the eve of his departure, faces the question of how the West should respond now, as IS poses a clear threat far beyond its strongholds in Syria and Iraq. Washington already expressed France or expects France to hit back by taking on a larger role in the US-led coalition's bombing campaign against IS.
I would like to invite those in Europe who are trying to change the migration agenda we have adopted. I would like to invite them to be serious about this and not to give in these basic reactions I don't like.
We need maybe also more, not only more coordination and cooperation, but also more goodwill. And I mean that especially Russian actions on the ground in Syria must be focused more on ISIS, and because in fact we can't accept any actions against the moderate Syrian opposition.
In light of the attacks that hit the French capital Paris, Algeria works hard to retrieve its community residing in France, and which estimates at 6 million. The government wants to benefit from the services of its own people who live abroad and provide them with security and stability in their homeland. Usama Snusi.
The recent attacks on the City of Light, Paris, got the world's attention and made the headlines. The unfortunate incident sent waves of terror and shock amongst the population residing in France, notably the Algerian community, which is estimated at 6 million inhabitants. The latter are now wanted more than ever to contribute to their homeland's economy, a wish which the Algerian Business Forum has always expressed. These attacks have definitely confirmed that the French soil is no longer a stable home for the Algerian population, and today the ball is in the court of the government, who should double efforts and strengthen its laws to reclaim its lost fortune abroad. Our population abroad is waiting now for governmental guarantees and financial incentives, and Algeria has all the capacities to achieve that. The changes of the situations and conditions have overturned the scales and turned Algeria into a stable and well-secured country, unlike France, a situation that works for the benefit of the Algerian government, that works hard to retrieve its community abroad through encouraging investment and business administration. For the Algerian economy requires concerted efforts of all Algerians, either who live abroad or here in Algeria.
In other news, on November the 15th, 1988, the Palestine National Council declared the independence of the State of Palestine in Algiers, endorsing all principles of international law and UN resolutions. The State of Palestine is an Arab state, an integral and indivisible part of the Arab nation. Mustafa Azzouk.
The Palestinian National Council announces in the name of God, in the name of the people, of the Arab Palestinian people, the establishment of the State of Palestine in our Palestinian nation, with Holy Jerusalem as its capital.
"28 years ago today, Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat declared the independence of the State of Palestine in Algiers, which claims the territories of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, with Jerusalem as its holy capital. About 6.5 million Palestinians live in other countries, with many of them having an official refugee or displaced person status. In March 2007, a national unity government headed by VA Prime Minister Ismail Haniyeh of Hamas was briefly formed about tensions between Fatah and Hamas, while control of Palestinian security forces soon erupted, leading to the 2007 Battle of Gaza, after which Hamas took control of Gaza, while its officials were ousted from government oppositions in the West Bank. In 2011, Hamas and Fatah announced a reconciliation agreement that provides for the creation of a joint caretaker Palestinian government. Progress stalled until a new Palestinian unity government was sworn in on the 2nd of June 2014. On the 28th of November 2013, the UN General Assembly raised the status of the Palestinian state to an observer state and reaffirmed the right of Palestinians to self-determination within the territories occupied by Israel in 1967. On January the 5th, 2014, Mr. Mahmoud Abbas signed a decree naming officially the State of Palestine. Over 100 countries have recognized Palestine as a sovereign state. The European Union and most of EU member states have not yet officially recognized Palestine's sovereignty.
Way back to Algeria now. It might be an unknown province for most of us, but the city of Jilfa holds amazing landscapes. This is why bicycle hikers choose this destination to enjoy their favorite activity and discover its heavenly sights. Shakib Lawishi.
Motorcycle lovers have chosen the province of Jilfa to practice their favorite activity. Youngsters and adults go up the hills and down the mountains, discovering marvelous and beautiful landscapes that our country has. The idea of cycling in the mountains and highlands was the idea of two young men on Facebook from El Jilfa. I liked the idea. Then I got in touch with them. The mountains of El Jilfa are extraordinary. It's a wonderful and touristic place that people should visit. We need to promote the area through social networks websites. At the end of their journey, the bicycle hikers set up a camping tent to relax after mesmerizing moments of cycling. Not only cycling, but setting up camps is also a new experience to us. We start a fire camp and we gather around it. We tell stories and we try to get close to each other. Along with cycling, the hikers try to preserve the nature by cleaning the area and collecting litter. We try to clean the area by getting rid of plastic bags that harm the nature. Sports, tourism, and protecting the environment, all put together for an unforgettable journey. This is what these passionate cyclers have experienced, and they are still asking for more.
In its 7th edition, Southern Theatrical Days see the participation of Wafa Association from Gardaya province with Harjoun play, which amazed the large audiences, for it deals with issues facing Algerian literary writers. What's remarkable about this play is that it is characterized by simple and direct style. Karim Fazzakri.
From the depths of the Mizab's town, Art and Culture Association of Gardaya, Wafa, gave a beautiful performance which carries an artistic message about the status of thinkers and the issues which literary authors faced in an era when all scales have been overturned.
احنا همنا الجمهور وليس
All we care about is the audiences in general, not only the educated or theater experts. Simple plays which could be understood by all and not the puzzling ones which even experts have troubles deciphering. We meet with professors and artistic icons to have such constructive criticism through which we will, God willing, develop and learn.
We
have chosen this simple and direct style and dialogue due to the importance of this topic, especially that now we are in need of caring about scholars and, as we said in the play, to develop a productive nation. Bashir is a writer who preserved his intellectual heritage despite the pressure, problems and changes which our society witnesses. The director made a good use of these young forces and talents which took the play into a whole different artistic level and was more than successful in getting the message across. Many audiences were impressed. The show, generally speaking, was very exciting, and we noticed the interaction of the audiences with the play, and this is very important. This genre must be strongly present in the Algerian theater because we drifted far away from what's Algerian. Many talents and creative young prodigies came from the depth of the desert to participate in these theatrical days in the Southern in its 7th edition, awaiting other young talents which could emerge in the field of the fourth art.
Always with national news, Sid Ahmed Siri, Algerian musician, professor of Andalusian music and singer, passed away Sunday in Algiers at the age of 89. He will be laid to rest on Monday afternoon prayers at Sidi Yahya Cemetery in Algiers. Sid Ahmed Siri has been the first lyric artist to receive in April 1992 the National Merit Order insignias. The late was born on the 2nd of November 1926 in the Kasbah of Algiers. May he rest in peace. And shifting now to other world news. For years, Karnath Sharma collects and uses drugs to redistribute to the poor in a country where 65% of the population lacks access to basic medicines, despite the universal healthcare promise of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who came to power in May 2014. Karim Fazakri.
This is what we call an improvised pharmacy. This man has been collecting unused medicines by Indian homes for so many years. The collected drugs are then distributed to the poor. A man sleeping in the streets, eats and lives there. How can he get drugs? It shocked me. There are some drugs in each house. Each household has medicine, but they all end up in the trash. Universal healthcare was one of the campaign promises of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who came to power in May 2014. Yet, 65% of the population still lack access to basic drugs. In public hospitals and clinics like this, treatment is free, but there are not enough drugs. And due to the large influx of patients, consultations are often botched.
Examination time in government hospital, they say it is 20 seconds. Average time. They go so fast.
India spends only 1% of its GDP on public health, which is less than Sri Lanka or Bangladesh. Households are often forced to pay out of their own pocket. Faced with criticism, the government promises strong action.
The system must make sure that these drugs are available, and they should not say that it is out of stock. So management of the hospital should we fix up the responsibility that such drug is not available, then the action to be taken against the management. That is the only way.
Paradoxically, while the medical system of India is lagging behind, the country is one of the largest exporters of generics in the world, with sales steadily rising.
In Mali, 60 kilometers west of Bamako, an entire village is emptied from its youth due to absence of any economic activity. Many desperate young people risk their lives taking perilous journeys to reach Europe in search of a better life. Let's follow this reportage by Karim Fazakri.
At 60 kilometers west of Bamako, the village of Konjan is losing its youth. In search of a better life, young people take major risks off to Europe. After the rainy season, the younger are forced to leave, giving it a shot elsewhere because the hardware is insufficient. Water is no longer distributed properly. This is what drives many young people out of the rural exodus. In each family, at least 3 young people take the path of exile. To finance the trip of his brother, Chayak's parents sold their lone boat in hope their son could join El Dorado on the other side of the Mediterranean. My brother spent 2 exhausting years on the road. Thanks God, he was able to return to Spain. That day at the village, we did not even have enough to eat. He helped us a lot later, whether for food, construction, and even when the father got sick, he assisted us a lot. Without his help, the father would have died. But others have experienced more tragic fates. Geneba alerts in her radio show listeners about the dangers of illegal immigration, an awareness message which often remains vain. Even young people who are here, there are plenty who died on the road. Myself, I have an older brother who died. The boat fell into the water between Morocco and Spain. He lost his life. Despite all this, there are brothers who left after all that. This is the case of Haruna, who recently returned from Libya. In the middle of the field, he entertains the idea of hitting the road once more. Maybe he could be luckier this time.
And finally, 6 months before the exclusion of Swaziland before or from a crucial trade agreement with the United States, Maria Matsibula, employed in textiles, knelt before King Mswati III to beg him to do everything so that the kingdom remains a privileged partner of Washington. Kenifa Zakri.
Sewing machines, key instruments of the Swaziland economy. Textile industry is the largest employer in this small kingdom in southern Africa. But the sector is in crisis. The United States has excluded the country from a trade agreement which exempted it from taxes on exports. Washington broke the deal because of repeated violations of human rights. According to labor unions, since the beginning of the year, 3,000 textile workers lost their jobs, much less according to the government.
We lost about close to 1.8 thousand jobs, 1,800 jobs, companies that were 100% exporting to the United States of America through AGOA. But through the work that we have done in terms of developing new markets, I'm happy to say up to now we are almost breaking even in terms of that deficit that was created by AGOA.
1,800 would be a very conservative estimate, given that in one firm alone, we lost 1,450 jobs, one firm alone. We saw massive loss of jobs, particularly by our workers in the textile sector. And what is unfortunate is that we have only seen a snail pace on the part of the government in addressing the issues that led us to the loss of AGOA.
Under a GOA agreement launched in 2000, some 40 countries in sub-Saharan Africa have access to the US market with favorable conditions. In Swaziland, the agreement has allowed textile to prosper. But in return, countries must respect human rights, including freedom of the press and the right to go on strike.
It is workers' right to organize, it is workers' right to strike if they are not happy with what the employer is offering. But in Swaziland, when workers strike, the government send in police to beat up workers, to tell workers to return to work.
As Maria Matsibula, over 28% of Swaziland's workforce is unemployed. Her past as a labor unionist makes her reintegration even much more complicated.
Really, it's very, very difficult and it's painful because we don't know. The Constitution says every worker has a right to be unionized. But those people, they don't want us. They really don't want us.
The Swazi government has promised to do everything to reinstate the agreement. But the kingdom is also under fire from critics of the European Union for threatening and having arrested journalists and opposition members. Without real reform, more jobs could still disappear.
And we wrap up our main English news edition with a reminder of our main top stories. Investigators in France and beyond have begun making arrests as they piece together the identities and backstories of Paris attackers. G20 summit in Turkey has taken on new urgency after attacks in Paris pushed the fight against ISIS to the top of the agenda. And on November the 15th, 1988, the Palestine National Council declared the independence of the State of Palestine in Algiers. Again, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.